I interviewed my great-aunt Sandra K. Hammond. She has been a big part of my family and has had the kindest heart for the longest I can remember. She is always driving up to visit and help my mom out with her business, and at every family gathering you can count on her to show up with tasty food and a big smile. I decided to interview her because I greatly look up to the person she is, and I was interested to see what two major events she felt shaped who she is today. The first event my aunt went into great detail about was her living in Saudi Arabia from around 1980 to 1984. Her husband was working for McDonnell Douglas, and they offered him a position overseas in Saudi Arabia. Even with the 12-year-old son, they decided due to salary increase and the chance to get ahead, it was worth it to make the move. They're the first of 7 families that were brought to Saudi Arabia, and they lived in a compound in Dhahran with other Americans working for the company. The company provided for all of their necessities. The house was completely paid for and totally furnished. For Mark, their son, life mainly consisted of continuing his education at an American consulate school. For my aunt, life mainly consisted of shopping, bargaining, cooking, and cleaning, typically accomplished in the morning so as not to interrupt the typical Saudi Arabian 5 times a day of prayer. Life for the guys would mainly consist of work and playing cards on the weekends. The company also gave the family rest and relaxation money, so they were able to go on trips to places like Africa, Thailand, and Switzerland. Eventually, as their son grew older, they returned to the States so they could further his education there. My aunt described her time in Saudi Arabia as incredibly formidable. First, because of the vast number of people and cultures she was exposed to. Secondly, because being around all those other cultures gave her a greater appreciation for the USA. She realized how many freedoms we have and how much we take for granted. I think my aunt's experiences in Saudi Arabia first off gave me a glimpse into their culture, but also made me greater appreciate where I come from. I know with my experiences overseas, I absolutely love other people and exploring other environments. However, I am incredibly grateful for my family and home in the United States. The second event my aunt explained as being crucial to her life was the loss of her son, Mark. She would say very little about the subject, and understandably so I questioned my dad to fill in some of the details. The accident occurred when her son, Mark, was 16 years old. He'd gone to the drive-ins to see a movie with some friends. There was alcohol there, and although he had previously never drank, he decided to have a few beers. The friends watched the movies, and then someone offered to give him a ride home, but Mark refused. When driving back, he slid off the road and hit a tree and died. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people at the funeral. Mark was a very well-liked kid, and not at all known as a partier or a drinker, so it was shocking to many when he died. This was my Aunt Sandy's only child, and so as you can imagine, this was one of the hardest times in her life. She said the biggest impact the death of Mark had was it began her journey to a greater relationship with the Lord. It woke her up to a lot of learning and growth, and the pain and hardship took her to the Bible and to God. She said this is when her and my uncle found refuge in the Lord and began to truly appreciate their relationship with God. For me, although I do not talk to my aunt much about church or God, her actions are enough for me to know her Christian values and beliefs. She is continuously uplifting and giving of her time. I can see God's grace and patience in my aunt, and that has encouraged me with my walk with the Lord. I think because of her actions, I have been able to put faith at the forefront of my life. Overall, I admire my aunt for her strength and constant love for all people. I love her constant appreciation for every moment. I think this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt accurately depicts what my aunt has taught me to believe. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift from God, which is why we call it the present.